Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2016 X-Men sequel, X-Men Apocalypse. The film is co-written and directed by Bryan Singer, who returns after Days of Future Past, and it stars James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, Oscar Isaac, Rose Byrne, Evan Peters, Sophie Turner, and Ty Sheridan. Right, this time round, the film focuses on the villain Apocalypse, who we see at the beginning of the film is the first recorded mutant and the most powerful. He is like godlike. He can kind of absorb other mutants' powers. But he is betrayed and trapped by his own people in ancient Egypt. And at the beginning of this film, he is unearthed and wreaks havoc. Once again on the Earth, recruits mutants, makes them more powerful to become his fourth horseman of the apocalypse, and goes head to head with the X-Men. Right, what are my thoughts on X-Men Apocalypse? Well, I've always really enjoyed this one. I remember when it came out. I went to see this at the cinema, I think, when I was on holiday down in Skegness, and my son was about 10 at the time, so he was really heavily into superhero films and X-Men films in particular. And I remember going and really enjoying this one at the cinema. I thought it was very good indeed. And I haven't seen it since I saw that right in the cinema, strangely. But obviously I've rewatched it for this review, and I have to say it still stands up. I think this is a very, very enjoyable X-Men film. Is it up to the high standards of, the peak X-Men films like X-Men 2, First Class, Days of Future Past? Maybe not, but I don't think it's a million miles away from them. I think we get a very, very enjoyable film here from a group of actors who are, at this point now, very comfortable in the roles, and arguably, when you think of the actors that play like Professor X and Magneto and things, you don't automatically think of Patrick Stewart and the others. You have a thought of these as well now, because they've become just as much a part of the X-Men movies now. I quite really enjoyed the story here. This whole Apocalypse story. Apocalypse played by Oscar Isaac. The whole idea of him coming back, from ancient times and disappointed with how mutant kind of turned out, almost repressed, and he wants to kind of take them right to the top of the food chain once again, and recruiting mutants to do that, and one of those being Magneto. I like the idea that they gave Magneto in this film. He tried to kind of put his past behind him. He's got a family now, he's got a child, and it all goes to pot, and he's really vengeful, and ends up being recruited by Apocalypse. And then you've got these other new X-Men that are introduced in this film. You've got the younger X-Men like Jean Grey, Cyclops, Scott Summers, you've got Angel, you've got Storm, all these others. Now, I think for the most part, the casting here of the younger X-Men works. And when you kind of read about, how the time traveling in the last films kind of altered the timelines now, so they've kind of got different futures ahead of them, you can kind of put that to rest. But the original X-Men films and their character arcs and stuff feel like night and day now compared to the characters that we are presented with. So it almost feels like, they're retconning the old films now with these newer ones. I think the biggest miscast here, for me, was Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. Very bland performance, I'm sorry to say. I don't think she brought anything to the role as Jean Grey. I didn't buy her as Jean Grey at all. And I think that's proven in the next film, really, when they buggered up her storyline once again, as they did before in X-Men 3. The whole Jean Grey storyline. But beyond that, I think, everybody else is fine. was delighted to get Evan Peters back in the film, doing what he does with his Quicksilver stuff, and we get some more Quicksilver sequences in this, which is very good. I'm not sure about the storyline between him and Magneto, with the fact that Magneto's his father, and so I think there's a couple of missteps story-wise here with this film, and it's almost like they kind of maybe try to do a little bit too much here. In regards to some of the plot lines, I think they tried to give some of the characters plot lines that they didn't necessarily need to, and it kind of bogged down the film a little bit. We learn in this film how Xavier loses his hair. I mean, because essentially Apocalypse wants his powers, and once he gets hold of Xavier's mutant powers and absorbs them, he will then become all powerful. That's the last piece of the puzzle for him. He can then be able to connect with all the mutants on the Earth and everybody else, and just take control, really. So you see all these other X-Men and stuff fighting to protect Xavier. You get a really cool battle. I think it's pretty cool anyway. Battle at the end of the film, where the X-Men go up against Apocalypse and his four horsemen, so to speak. And I think that sequence is done very, very well indeed. I think the effects are very good here. Interestingly, I do believe that I think Idris Elba and Tom Hardy were in consideration to play Apocalypse, and Oscar Isaac got the role. Now, Oscar Isaac's a fine actor, we all know this. I'm just not sure the look and feel of Apocalypse was just right here in this film. And I'm not saying Tom Hardy or Idris Elba could have done any better. I don't know. There's just something about how Apocalypse is portrayed in this film. It doesn't. I don't know what the right word is. Ring true almost, but it's he's not a bad villain by any stretch of the imagination. In actual fact, he's a very strong villain. I don't know. There's just something missing there. So yeah, I think this is a fine addition, obviously, to the X-Men franchise. It's right up there with the best of the franchise, in my opinion. And when you actually analyse, when you look at all the X-Men films, and I'm including the Wolverine ones in there as well, we've had a lot up to this point. Most of them are very, very watchable, and well, I think all of them to a large degree are very watchable, and this is definitely, I think, near the top end of the scale in regards to quality. So we've only really got one to go. I'm not gonna rewatch and review Logan, because I watched and reviewed that when that came out. I think there's a review of that already on the channel. So I think this is it in regards to X-Men reviews after when I do, the Dark Phoenix one. But yeah, I've really enjoyed revisiting the X-Men films, and I'm looking forward to rewatching Dark Phoenix, even though that one is regarded, justifiably so probably, as the weakest of these new films. But yeah, thanks for joining me for this review, guys. I will of course be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.